guys? It's episode 1 of Empire Mentality. Our first guest is a guy that's close to me and that I look up to. He runs his own sales and marketing firm out of Cleveland, Ohio right now called Legacy Business Solutions. He's also someone that will be a repeat guest on the podcast. We've got some big plans to do a lot more of these together. So I hope you enjoy it. He's my big brother, Matt. All right, dude, we're live. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no worries.
I said it in my intro, but this is my big brother, Matt. So we're just going to talk a little bit about his journey and kind of how he got started in entrepreneurship and owning his own business. And I want to go back to kind of you right out of college, getting a business degree.
Right.
And kind of what you were looking for right out of college for a job. There's a lot of kids that they get a degree and they don't really know the path that they want to go on.
Sure.
And there's a lot of entry-level jobs out there, so I want to hear what your mindset was going into it.
Well, I was kind of the same way. The only thing, I guess I was very money motivated, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do either. And the thing that kind of inspired me, I think, was I got to see somebody who was a little bit further in their career, but I got a chance to go to, when I was in high school, I got a chance to go to a Louisville football game with my dad. And yeah, you were there with Dad's insurance agent at the time, Patrick. And, we were down there, and, Dad was one of his bigger, larger clients. And so one of the things that they would do to retain clients was, take them to sporting events, and stuff like that. And, I got to asking questions. I was like, that seems like, kind of a cool job. He's, gets to, bring his clients to games, and, they had, quite the tailgate spread, and we had really good seats for the game. And, they were kind of treating us, like royalty because, Dad's company was a big, big client of theirs. And so I was like, man, that would be cool. And I got to asking Dad questions about, the insurance industry and selling commercial lines insurance and the percentages and the commission and residual income and all of that other stuff. But the thing that, was really exciting me the most, when I was in college, when you're 2021, I was like, man, getting paid to retain clients and take them to sporting events and stuff like that. Seemed like a fantasy world, right? Like, yeah, that's that. Of course, that was right up my alley, right? Doing that kind of thing. And so I was really excited, about it. And, I'd had a sales internship. I had the summer before I graduated college selling cruise packages over the phone. And I did pretty well at it. So I knew I wanted to go into sales, especially with some of the interviews that I had gone on. You realized quickly that a college degree wasn't going to separate you, from anybody. In a 4-year degree, you think that everyone has this, I guess, false sense of, how much money they're going to make right when they graduate college. And I was like, I have a college degree from a private liberal arts school. I'll be getting offers that start out at like $50,000 a year. And then, because I played college football, it'll be a little higher and all that stuff. And then you interview, you realize nobody gave a shit, right? Nobody cared, at all. And the starting salaries, are coming out at $25,000, $30,000, $35,000. And we'll pay for your gas, stuff like that. And it was super discouraging. And so, I got to interview at a few places, and, I wanted to interview at that agency in Kentucky. They weren't hiring, but they passed my resume to a commercial lines insurance agency, down in Florida. They flew me down for the interview. The interview went well. The CEO was a cool guy and ended up getting the job down there. But I was money motivated and I was sales motivated. But that was really all that I knew. And I had done a little bit of research on sales jobs that had residual income to it, or income that you could get from retaining a client, so that you weren't constantly hunting for new business. And I liked the idea of that. But really, other than that, when I was in school, I was cramming for tests and playing ball, and and that was it. And that was kind of my college experience. And I was there to get a paper, and but that was kind of what brought me to my first job out of college, I guess. Yeah.
And so it was always money motivated. It was not strictly money motivated, but it was something that was fun. Make a little bit more money probably than the average, than all your friends.
Yeah.
Coming out of college.
Yeah.
And when you're a senior in college, you're 22 years old, probably you're not. It's kind of like picking your major all over again. You don't really know what you want it to be, so you kind of get something general and that you might like. So
yeah, it is. And there's this, and no one talks about it, but secretly you want to make more money than your buddies do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, your parents raised you not to talk about it, but you're trying to find. You're all kind of asking each other what you're doing, but you're also, secretly in your head, you're like, I want to get a better job. You want to get a better job than your buddy, or at least I did. You know, and so, I was always competitive that way, I guess. But.
Right. Yeah, we won't stick on it too long because I want to get to you getting into your own business and stuff. But I want to ask why. What about that culture or being in a big company like that, or that was kind of frustrating for you, or made you want to kind of do your own thing, or eventually leave?
That's an interesting story itself, and I liked sales, and the guy, and it's nothing against the company that I was working on. It's nothing against big companies, and it's nothing against corporate, America, being that I own my own company now, and we have multiple locations. So, we're becoming a larger, company. So the last thing I'd ever want to do is bash the thing that I'm now,
right.
Be trying to become, right. But there was a few things that I didn't like about, that job, I guess, in particular. And I think sometimes you need to experience that in order to figure out what you want out of life and what you want out of a career. But, I think anyone sticking with something, career-wise, comes down to, for me anyway, it comes down to pay, it comes down to culture, and it comes down, to the growth opportunity. And for me, the pay wasn't bad, and I had seen guys there that were making good money. So that wasn't really the thing that made me want to leave or start, my own company, or I didn't even know, I think then, that I wanted to start my own company. I just knew that I wanted a new job. But I was working with guys that were, 30 to 4 years my senior. It was, sun and sport and, all this other stuff. And I didn't like that. I was going into a workplace where I didn't really relate to anybody. I was in a cubicle. I wasn't really talking to anybody. And I'd just come from college where I wasn't more than 4 feet away ever from 100 other guys that were playing the same sport I was playing. And that had the same interest as me, and that I could build camaraderie with or joke around with. And that camaraderie not being there kind of put me in a state of just being really, really down, all the time. And I think one of the most common misconceptions is that your workplace is a place where you don't make friends and you build relationships outside of the office in order to make more money, but that there aren't relationships built in the office. You just have to respect each other. You don't have to like each other, right? And it kind of had, that feel. You have to coexist, but you don't have to like everybody that you work with, but you do have to respect them. You do have to figure out how to work with them. And I didn't like that. I didn't understand that, and it wasn't something that I wanted to, continue to do. So it wasn't that there was a bad culture, I think a toxic culture, but it wasn't an enjoyable culture. It wasn't a fun culture, and not that, and we're going to touch on it later, that not everything has to be fun, for you to do it. But I wasn't super excited about the culture. And then when I saw the growth opportunity, I wanted my sales and I wanted my performance to lead to something. And I wanted there to be a road, and I wanted there to be some type of game plan for growth. I didn't want to, hammer away, at something and possibly be stuck in a scenario. And I had kind of started to get the feel that it was a place where if you were really, really good at sales, that they didn't want to lose their best sales rep, right? And I think a lot of companies have that culture, right? And I think that people who are involved in sales, they have great interpersonal skills, they have thick skin, they have great, they're accountable, they're self-sufficient. A lot of the character traits that make somebody good at sales is also the character traits that make somebody good at leading, or make somebody, worth, putting in a managerial role or a leadership role. But there's a lot of, whether it's cars, whether it's insurance, you name the industry. Sometimes if you're too good at sales, they want you to stay there.
You're their biggest asset.
Yeah, you're their biggest asset. They don't want you to start making salary, because if they switch you to a salaried position where you're leading other people, then you're not there. And so I just kind of got that vibe, and I had just started out, right? Even before, I was only there 10 months before I left, but I'd kind of started to get that feel, and I'd sort of kind of to see that vibe, inside of the office. And so I was like, I didn't feel comfortable with the growth opportunity. There didn't seem to be a game plan for new people that were coming in for that. I wasn't crazy, about the culture. and I was pretty confident in my ability to make money there, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do sales then, but I didn't still want to be hammering away and grinding at it. Nose to the grindstone when I was 40. I wanted to lead to something else, and I didn't see any of those ends in sight. And then what made me want to leave was I actually took a vacation. The way that Christmas and New Year's fell is I only needed to take 2 days off to get like 7 days off, because it was like weekend, and then Christmas Eve and Christmas was on a Monday, Tuesday, and then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day was on a Monday, Tuesday. And I got to come home. I got to see you. I got to see Joe and Billy and Mario, a few of our buddies. And we had a really, really good time. And I think when you're away from, camaraderie, and it wasn't like, I wanted to come home and I wanted to just party and not work, right? But I had realized how much I missed just friendships and camaraderie and all of those things, and I realized how deprived I was of it when I was down there. I was going to work, I didn't enjoy the company of the people that I was working with, and then I was just working out, maybe watching a little bit of TV, and sometimes I'd work out for like 3 hours just because I didn't know anybody down there either. So I'd like work out for like 3 hours after work, get some food, watch a little bit of TV, go to bed, and then I was like, oh my gosh, here's these positive conversations, these uplifting conversations, and that camaraderie that I'd been missing for so long. And then after I got back from the break, I get back from the break, I go there, I'm getting ready for work the next day, I'm like ironing my shirt, laying my clothes out, and I was just so upset. I was super, super upset, and I was super, super depressed, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this, anymore. I was like, I don't want to do it. And I don't think I slept but like an hour the whole night, because I didn't know, because Dad had actually referred me to, the job. He had passed my resume to someone who had passed it to somebody else. And I was like so nervous to tell him. And so then I drive there, and I'm sitting in the parking lot, and I'm dressed. I'm like ready to go to work. So I was like, I have to go to work. I can't turn down this job. Like someone stuck their neck out for me to get this job. It's a good job. It's a good opportunity. Whatever. And so I'm out there like 30 minutes early, and it's about 2 minutes before I actually have to walk in to work. And I called Dad, and I was like, hey, I was like, can I talk to you? And he was like, he could tell. He was like, is everything okay? And I was like, yes and no. I was like, I think I want to quit. And they're just like, he was like, your job? Yeah. I just got back.
Which is not something that like we were raised to do. Is quit,
right, especially after 10 months. So I'd only been down there 10 months. And I was like, yeah, that. The job. And he was like, well, do you want to stick with it? What's going on? This, that, or another thing. And I was like, and at the time I thought that I, just missed being around everybody, and I wanted to work closer to home. I realized later that it was just, being around, other, energetic, positive, uplifting, people, instead of being stuck in a cubicle, looking at the clock. But I was just like, yeah, I just miss everybody. Yeah. And he was like, are you sure? Are you positive? And I get kind of like choked up a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. I was like, I don't even want to go in there. Like, I was like, I'm dreading it. I was like, I'm dreading every second. Like, I don't want to even go through those doors. And then I finally like said it out loud. I was like, I hate it here. It wasn't that I hated the people that, were at the company. I was like, but I just hated my routine. I hated the environment. I hated the cubicle life. I hated, I hated everything about it.
It probably felt good to finally say those words.
Yeah, say it out loud. So I
flat out, I just hate it.
Yeah, I was like, I hate it here, and it was just like a weight, off of my chest. And he was like, all right, well, you got to call, whoever it was that referred me down there. He's like, you're gonna have to let them know, and I'll make a point, to let them know, as well. And so, I let him know, and I went in there and I talked to the CEO's name was Doug, and and that was the hardest part about quitting, is Doug was a super cool guy, and his office was across the hall from my cubicle. So he was right there, so I had to go in there and tell him that I was, leaving and whatever. And and then and he was cool about it. But then the awkward part was, so then they sent out an email. Like, the way they did it was weird. They sent out a mass email that I was like quitting. I was like still packing up my shit. I wasn't even gone yet. And so
they like couldn't wait. They're like, finally, this kid's out of here.
Like how it is in the movies where you like pack like a box of your shit. And so like they had they sent out an email and like people are asking me, they're like, "Hey, I heard you quit." I'm like, "Word travels fast."
I wasn't prepared to answer any questions about this.
I just wanted to sneak out, and so then everyone's asking me, why, what happened, all this shit, and so I'm trying to like, avoid. And then apparently you have to like do like an exit interview. So then I had all my shit packed up, and then you got to do like an exit interview and like, like unsubscribe from your benefits or like whatever. I had to do some like exit paperwork or whatever because it was a salaried, job. So I had to do some like exit stuff, and that, it's too long to read. So I was like, yeah, just whatever, get me out of here. I'll sign it. And so who knows? Maybe they have like my, the rights to my firstborn child now or something. I was just like signing it and, getting out of there. But I, eventually, signed it all. I got out of there. And it was just, a weight, off my shoulders. And, I just remember being like so excited to leave, so excited to get back home. And so I pack up all of the stuff in my apartment that I can. I had, a Chrysler, it was like a 2000, like Chrysler LHS at the time. It was like 2013. And I loaded it, Dad's old car. And I loaded everything that I could in it. I had like a newer, like sectional couch, kind of like the one that you have there. And that was nicer, something that, I'd had bought for me before I went down there. And I, had that shipped back, my bed shipped back because that stuff was newer. And then I sold everything else that I could out of it. There was like a apartment complex page that you could like sell all of your stuff. So I sold everything that I could, paid to ship the rest. And then I drove, like the second it was all gone and I had gotten rid of all of my stuff, and could fit everything else in my car, I was gone. I bought like 4 or 5 hour energies. I drove 18 hours straight through the night to catch Joe's basketball game, which he coincidentally like played in. Like he wasn't getting a lot of playing time at the time, but he, so coincidentally the day I came home, he played in, and drove like, took 4 or 5 hours, drove 18 hours straight through the night. Got home, caught the game, fell asleep, and then started the job search, after that. Yeah. But that was kind of what brought me. I think those were the things that working there kind of, I guess, taught me what was, important to me and what wasn't. At the time, I just thought I wanted to be closer to my friends and family. But later I found out, I got involved with, the new job that I had after that. And as you know, I hardly came home. Yeah. I could have, and I hardly came home. And so what I realized, through having a job with a culture that I didn't really enjoy, and then finding one with a culture that I didn't really enjoy, is that I guess connotation that, work is a place where, those are your coworkers, not your friends, was just something that I didn't agree with at all.
Yeah, it sounds like you started to figure it out still while you were working down in Florida, and because that was where I wanted to go with this, and we spent a lot of time on that. But
I'm chewing up the film.
No. But it's important because that's kind of going through that experience is what made you, or gave you the attitude and beliefs that you have now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we spent that much time on it. But I wanted to ask you, but it sounds like you did a little soul searching yourself in that last couple months where you were figuring yourself out. But was there a time in between that and getting the next sales job that you were really sat down and just thought about like what you wanted, or was it just kind of, I'm just gonna look for another job and see what I like?
Well, I was just sending out resumes everywhere. I was on Indeed, I was on Career Builder, I was on Monster, and I was just applying to all of these places that had a bigger salary than the place that I was. I just didn't want to. I moved home. So everyone was like, you moved home from Florida, you moved away from that, good job. And, so everyone was super like concerned and interested as to why, because when they would ask me what I was doing, when I described the job in Florida, I was describing it to everybody else. I was kind of, fronting a little bit, I was describing it to everybody else as what, Patrick was doing with Dad. But when you're a rookie insurance agent, you're not signing, the Michigan Sugars and these big manufacturing plants. You're signing like probably small mom and pop shops, and they're not. I learned after being down there, those type of clients don't get to go
Yeah.
to the Rays games and the Tampa Bay Bucks games.
You just take them to lunch or bring them donuts.
Yeah, you don't get to you do that. And so I had hyped it up. And that was something that I could have gotten to maybe when I was 40, right? But I hyped it up as I was going to be doing that stuff right away. And I think in my head I thought I would be, and I wasn't. It's a process, and you got to put your time in. So everyone thought that I quit this amazing job of just swooning clients at professional sports games, and that wasn't exactly the case. So everyone was like asking, like, what are you doing back in Freeland, Michigan, back from Tampa Bay, Florida. And so I kind of had to explain myself, but I was just looking and applying, for all of these jobs. And I eventually got a call from the girl who's actually my head recruiter now. She works for me now, still to this day. 7 years later, I get a call from this girl called Brittany. She works at this company called Perspective Advertising. And all she talked to me about on the phone was, she didn't talk about my sales experience. She didn't talk about insurance. She didn't talk about the sales that I did over the phone or, she talked about two things that I had really felt were what made me me. And that was my job as a bartender and waiter. And that was playing football. And those were the only two things she brought up. She was like, I see that you waited tables and bartended. I also see you played college football. Tell me about that. Those were my least recent experiences. But like, to me, the reason why I had been getting calls for interviews like all morning, like all these insurance agents, all these car dealerships, all these places, they see sales experience, right?
Yeah.
Everything, the bloodline or the lifeline of every business is how well you recruit and how well you sell, right? And so, I was getting all these calls and I was like, man, I don't know if I even want to do insurance again. It's just going to be me and a bunch of 60-year-old people, and I'm going to get stuck in a cubicle cold calling all day. And I just didn't want to do that. And she brought up waiting tables and bartending and, playing football. And those were the two things that I thought gave me the most skills that I thought were going to make me good in sales and advertising and marketing, and that I thought, gave you great leadership skills. And we talked about that. And so I went down there for the interview there. And that was all, my boss at the time, I ended up taking that job. He talked to me about that in the interview process as well. It was my time playing sports and my time waiting tables and bartending, and how he thought that, sports and that made a great employee. Yeah. And, they both kind of lined up. And I actually didn't take that. I actually didn't take that job right away. And they told me afterwards that Brittany was actually talking shit because I took like 2 weeks to accept it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
On. Yeah, I had other interviews to go on.
You want to test that?
And I wanted to test the waters. And a lot of companies don't let you do that. I don't even let people do
that
anymore when I interview. So I went on like a bunch of other interviews, and I couldn't get over it. And their company structure, they were a vendor that had a parent company and it's kind of the same business that I'm in now, in the same industry that I'm in now. They were a vendor, and so they had a parent company, and that parent company had large telecommunication companies and home improvement companies and cosmetics brands that they would either do residential sales for or retail sales for, doing the retail sales inside of either malls or Costco's, all of that stuff. And I wasn't, and the business model was to, take the best sales rep, which was another one of my worries, was to take the best sales rep and put them in a leadership role. And their motto, and one of the things that also impressed me in their interview process, was, we feel like people who can sell also possess these other skill sets, right? Like I kind of talked about earlier, yeah. And I was like, whoa, like these people are in my head,
yeah.
Right? Waiting tables, bartending, sales, football, that these people, are the biggest assets to a business. And I just couldn't have. I'm interviewing. I'm like, I just can't agree with these people anymore. Than I agree with them right now. And their motto was, if you can take somebody that's really good at sales and somebody who's really good at driving revenue, and put them in a team lead position where they have the opportunity to be involved in the hiring process and be involved in the training process and kind of assemble and kind of mentor and kind of like draft and coach a team, right? That one person that can generate, let's say $5,000 worth of sales in a week, if we give him a team of 10 people, he's got to perform first, he's got to prove himself first. But if we give this guy who's, a beast in this area, a team of 5 to 10 people, even if those 5 to 10 people are only 60% as good as him, right? You're doing $10,000 in sales, and his team of 10 can only do $6,000 worth of sales every single week. $60,000 worth of sales instead of $10,000 worth of sales. So they didn't look at it like a lot of other companies looked at it, where, you know, hey, we just lost our best sales rep because now he's in a team lead role, or now he's in a managerial role. They looked at it as like, man, if he can even train people to be 60% as good as him, as good as him, but we start a hiring process for him and assemble a team around him, you know, our company makes way more money, you know, right? And he's happier, and these new reps are happier because they have a guy who's been through it before. They know that and that was one of the problems I had with my, you know, mentor at the insurance agency that I was working at, is that it made it through the grapevine that this guy that was doing our training program had never even like sold insurance before.
Yeah, you want to be working for a guy that's been through the same stuff.
He got licensed. He got licensed, but he doesn't even have a book of business.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were instantly like very unimpressed, you know, by that guy. You know, people want to know. You want to know that you're. You know, one of the things that was, even when I played youth football, one of the coolest things, you know, about the youth football team that we played on was that our D coordinator played at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You know, granted, like, not a huge Ohio State fan, but like not a huge fan. But we thought that was so cool, right? And so we listened to him, like the words he was speaking was prophecy. You know, right? It was the law. And so, you know, that was one thing I was like, wow, you know, I really liked the structure, you know, that they had. And so I accepted that job down there and quickly moved into a team lead role. And then got the opportunity to where the parent company of Perspective and them, you know, felt comfortable with me actually incorporating myself and vendoring myself in, and, you know, starting a small team in a small office in the Metro Detroit area, and then, you know, being able to expand my business, you know, from there. Yeah.
So then you, like you said, you can get your own offices, you start building, and you've grown it pretty big now. But and not a lot of people in this parent company have accomplished what you have, or what Ben, the guy you worked for, had, getting their own offices. So what was different about your mindset, or Ben's, or other people that succeed in this, where they're starting to get multiple locations? What sets people like that apart than the average that fizzle out?
Yeah, I think people put really weird timelines on themselves. Like, I'm gonna try this for a certain amount of time, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna fall back on this. And I loved the culture. I loved what the company stood for, and I loved, you know, the process. I was making good money. I liked the culture, and I liked the growth opportunity. So I didn't care how fucking long it took.
And you know, I 100% in, when others are,
you know, Tony Robbins talked about,
but not,
I burned the boats.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and that's you know, we could have a whole. I won't even get into burning the boats. And, you know, for those of you guys who follow Tony Robbins, you know, and that story,
we'll get into it.
We'll get into another one. Right. We're running out of film. But, you know, I burned the boats, and I was just like, man, even if this takes me, you know, and the goal was to get somebody into a role, you know, of running one of these locations, or kind of getting vendored in, or incorporated is what we call it, within 12 months. But I was like, dude, even if it took me 5 years, you know,
it's worth it.
The average, you know, we won't get into, you know, to the monetary aspect, but the average of what somebody who was running one of these locations was making, I was like, dude, like most companies, you know, some people work at a company their entire life, don't make that much money. I was like, so yeah, even it takes me, and it didn't, you know, it took me about 13 months, you know, to accomplish and assemble a team and build a team that they felt comfortable with me, you know, running a location with. But people put these weird timelines on, and they have this plan B. Their plan B muddies up their plan A, and I'll try this for a certain amount of time, and if it doesn't work out, I'll still be okay. You know, and I kind of looked at it like, man, I'm not going to be okay. Like, I need this. I want this so bad. I need this so bad. I won't be okay. You know, if I don't, you know, accomplish this. Just like when you're playing sports, like, you know, some people are like, oh, you know, I just want to make the team. Like, I wouldn't have been okay unless I was the starting point guard. I wouldn't have been okay unless I was the starting. It would have bothered me, you know, right? And so, you know, but there are kids that go through high school or go through middle school. You know, if I don't start, it's okay. I'm still on the winning team, or I'm still on the championship team. You know, I wanted to be, you know, a contributor, and so that was always kind of, you know, in my DNA. But people put weird timelines on it. Like, I'm going to try it for this amount of time. And I'm like, what? And one of the most interesting things that ever was said to me was from another one of my mentors in the business. His name's Enrique, is, you know, when he talks to people and they're upset about where they're at in their career at like 6 months in, or 7 months in, or 8 months in, and they're thinking about quitting, he says something interesting to them. He's like, I don't get you. He's like, you haven't earned the right to be disappointed yet.
Earned the right to be disappointed.
Earned the right to be disappointed.
I like
like, and they were like, well, what do you mean? Like, you don't ever get upset? He's like, sure, I get upset. He was like, but if you played Michael Jordan in a one-on-one pickup game, would you be upset?
Mm-hmm.
Would you just be honored to have your ass whooped by Michael Jordan? Just to meet him, right? He was like, if you beat Michael Jordan, he's earned the right to be upset. He's like, God damn it, that kid got lucky, right? You know, he hit like 8 threes in a row, right? He's put in enough time and enough energy to become excellent and elite at what he does. He's like, you've been doing this for 6 months. What did you expect? Yeah. Like, where did you think you were going to be? You know, think about anything that you started. Where were you 6 months later? You know, right? You know, you have no right to be upset. You know, you have no right to be like, oh, I'm not a millionaire yet. Just like people who are overweight, like they don't go to the gym for a week. They don't have the right to be upset. They haven't earned the right to be upset that they haven't lost any weight. Now, let's say they have a medical condition, and who knows? I know a lot of people in the fitness industry. They're gonna maybe shit on me for saying this, like, no, that's not a medical issue thing, but whatever. Yeah. But that's, I'm sure you'll have them on the podcast.
He's got big bones.
Yeah, they got big bones, right? Or some people, like, maybe really, it's rare that they do have metabolism issues. So let's say somebody's put 2 years in and they've done everything right, right? And they're still not losing any weight. Maybe they have the right, to be upset. And then they find out they really do have a medical condition, something like that. But somebody who's only put that little bit of time into something, you haven't put enough work in, enough sweat equity in, and you haven't gotten elite enough yet to be upset at where you're at. Yeah. Right? So,
and then being honest with yourself, we're saying, have I really done everything that I can?
Yeah.
Even if it was only 6 months, have I been making every call that I can? Have I been doing my homework outside of the office? Yeah. Have I been asking Matt, hey, this isn't work. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Can I get better? Have you done all that first?
Yeah.
And then if you have, whatever the timeline is, then maybe you have the right to be upset with yourself, or maybe it's just not for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also an interesting and then, the next question that everyone's going to ask is, how do you know whether you're doing everything? There's an interesting thing that I learned from being in the business as well. We call it the drone test. Right, so the drones are like those little helicopter boys with like the cameras on them that like you take, you see in action movies and all that other stuff. And so we call it the drone test, right? And so I think everybody kind of, another thing that helped us, grow and accomplish some of the things that we accomplished was doing the drone test on a daily basis. And Ben ran an interesting morning meeting, sales meeting one morning, where he asked everybody, about their week. He's like, how does everybody feel about their week last week? And everybody was like, we feel okay, this, that, or another thing. Like, don't exactly know what you mean by the question, but, it's all right, right? Everybody just kind of shrugs, right?
It was another week.
Yeah, just another week. It was whatever. And he was like, how many of you guys feel like you tried it, you put your best effort forward? And, pretty much the whole room raised their hand. And he's like, honestly, like, really think about that question. Do you really, really think that you did everything that you could? And maybe 3 less people, brought their hands down. He was like, okay, now let's pretend this. He was like, let's pretend that last week, from the time you woke up, from the time that you went to bed, you hit the button on your alarm, you get out, your feet touch the floor, the drone rises as well, right? And it's going to follow you, for the entire day. It's going to see you in traffic. It's going to see you, what time you wake up, whether you brush your teeth, whether the way that you brush your teeth, the way that you get dressed, whether you ironed your shirt or not, or just put your suit jacket over top of it to hide the wrinkles, right? Whether you ate breakfast, whether you're sticking to your diet, not sticking to your diet, how long your workout was, and then it's going to follow you, into, our morning training sessions that we do, whether you're productive or whether you're just talking about your weekend. It's got audio on it so it can hear you. It's going to follow you around inside of the retail stores if you're on the retail campaigns, or it's going to follow you through the residential territory if you're doing the residential sales. It's going to follow you everywhere, right? And, everyone's like, people started to get a little uncomfortable. He was like, let's pretend now, okay, that it's going to film you every day for an entire month. He was like, how comfortable would you be with us selecting a random date out of a hat and having either one of your old coaches, your mother, your father, your brothers, your sister, or your girlfriend watching a random day from one of your months? Damn, right? Yeah. Watching one of those days. And then everyone just kind of like looked from left and like looked to the right, at each other, right? And but no one raised their hand. Not a single not even myself, like raised their hand, because everyone, he was like, yeah, I bet some of you guys are feeling this way. Like,
and maybe you had one or 2 days in that week, or
like a random day. Like, you're going to pick a random one. I can't pick the day, right? Yeah. And that's kind of the world that we live in, now, where we kind of get to, especially with the social media and everything, we get to kind of pick and choose, what, we show. And he was like, so, and this is the way they described it. He was like, so I think a lot of people, as human nature, we just kind of chalk up our bad weeks, and it's kind of our instinctive response to say, I don't know what I did wrong. I tried my best.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone just kind of says, I don't know what I did wrong. I tried my best. I was really working it. Just wasn't my week.
I was out there. Right? I was out there the whole time.
It wasn't my week. Right. I was out there the whole time, I was trying my best. Be like, okay, yeah, let's pull a random day and watch the film. Well, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Not Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean, you gonna watch Tuesday? You can't watch Friday.
Well, Wednesday was a good one.
Wednesday was good, right?
I had 10 sales that day.
So to answer that question, yeah, you do know what you're doing wrong. You just didn't think anybody. You do know. One, you did know what you were doing wrong. Two, you do know how to fix it. Right? And three, no, you didn't give it everything you had. You're not actually, giving it, everything, that you had. So I think between weird deadlines, like, I'll fall back on this if this doesn't work out within 6 months. Like why? What are you gonna accomplish? What did you ever accomplish in 6 months before? Two,
anything worthwhile anyway.
Yeah, right. Two, the drone test, and then three, it was something that we talked about that I wanted to talk about on the podcast is, trying something, going through that uncomfortable phase, and then hiding behind, I'm just not doing well at it because I'm not passionate about retail sales, or I'm not passionate about residential sales, or I'm not passionate about this one little aspect,
or the product that you're selling, or whatever.
Yeah, and a new word that I've been throwing around lately is that's asinine, right? Like it's asinine to say, right? Like it's like, yeah, I was, anything, especially ex-athletes. It drives me crazy when ex-athletes say that, because I'd be the equivalent of like, I quit football because I wasn't passionate about running until I puked, right? Like if you're being passionate about something means that you'd go through hell and high water, for it. Marriages, for better, for worse, right? So, being passionate means that you'd be willing to go through anything for it, not the second shit gets hard or the second shit gets uncomfortable that, you throw in, the towel. So for me, I think that, if you're truly passionate about growth and the things that I was passionate about in the company, it doesn't mean being passionate about something doesn't mean it comes without resistance, right? And I decided it checked off my 3 boxes: the culture, the growth, and the amount of money, I was making. I was happy with all 3 of those things, just like there were certain things about football and basketball that brought me joy, and I decided that I loved. So, injuries, you play hurt, you play sick, you play in the rain, you play in the snow, you'll do whatever. And so for me, I just decided that, hey, these 3 things are the things that are the most important to me in a work environment. And yes, if negatives are going to come, if challenges are going to come, if things that are going to be uncomfortable are going to come, that I'm willing, to go through, that stuff. I just craved the end result. And so a lot of people think that they use passion as like this shield to avoid challenges. Like, I just wasn't passionate about it. No, you just weren't good at it. You weren't any good.
Or you didn't really try as hard as you could, or you didn't hold yourself accountable. Or
you hadn't earned the right to be disappointed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so, for me, I saw a lot of people doing that. I see a lot of people still do that in performance-based industries or in competitive industries, especially the sales industry, where a lot of offices like post performance, or they post the top guys and this, that, or another thing. It always seems to be the people that just didn't want to get outside of their comfort zone, or didn't want to network, or didn't want to work the entire day, or didn't want to go through the necessary grind, in order to get that. And that's fine, right? Not everybody, loves the grind and loves the process like other people do, and maybe they want more of a balance, but I just think a lot of people hide behind that. And, the example that I always use, it was a story I was telling you last night. The example I always use is, youth basketball or youth football, right? You think about, and everyone's like, no, the passion has to come first. No, there has to be an interest first, right? But I remember my first day of Boys Town, Girls Town, basketball with the legend Howard Davies.
Yeah, that's our rec league back in Freeland, Michigan. For you.
Yeah, and so I think for the for the non-locals, everybody has like a Boys Town, Girls Town, where it's first grade boys, second grade boys, third grade boys, fourth grade boys, and then there's the big, the dads get together and they do it's like a fantasy draft. They draft all the kids and stuff, and so they put you through all these drills, and the dads assess the talent, and then it's just all the same kids that go to the same school, split up, drafted. The dads are the coaches, and there's one old school G, the official gangster that runs the league, right? And so Howard Davies was that. He had the starter shoes on and the tube socks with the sweatpants tucked in, and the Freeland Rec League, gray and
from 1972,
right? And so you go through that, right? But when you're so excited to play your first organized basketball game, right? And you think it's going to be just like what you see on TV, and so I'm showing that I'm 30 now. Back in the day it was Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill and Michael Jordan that were kind of the guys that were running the league. Jason Kidd, like when I was growing up, when I was like 5, 6, 7, when you go and start playing organized hoops, and so you watch them and you think that like hey, we're gonna play organized basketball. It's gonna look just like the All-Star game, right? And you go in there and you're wearing shoes that aren't broken in yet. Maybe your socks match, maybe they don't. Who knows,
Our socks
right?
don't match.
Yeah, ours didn't, right? But you're wearing, shorts that don't exactly, fit you. Like you would want them to. You got to pull the string, really tight to get them to fit, and then they give you a men's small shirt, so the sleeves come down to like your wrist, practically, right?
Swimming in it.
You're swimming in it,
you
right?
Tuck it in.
You look like a dork, right? So they give you, and then so that they can tell the difference between the teams, then you give you an even bigger mesh penny. If you're lucky, you're the non-penny team. If you're lucky, whatever. And so, and then Howard Davies lines everybody up, to do the drills, and he's like, everybody hold the ball in your right hand, and and he's like, now dribble in place. And some kids, for the most part, most kids can do that, right? And he's like, now we're going to walk to half court and back. And most kids can do it. Some look smoother than others, but for the most part, people can function with their right hand. And then they're like, all right, jog back and forth. And the really unathletic kids, the ones that you rate them from 1 to 6, right? So Dad gave these kids a 1. They bounce it off their foot. It dribbles away. And then you run from half court and back. But for the most part, maybe you were carrying the ball, maybe people like traveled, maybe people did whatever, but you could get from half court and back, with your right hand. And then, Howard's like, all right, now everybody hold the ball in your left hand. that moment, like you're like 5, 6, 7 years old, you realize, holy shit, this is the first time I've ever used this hand for anything,
not just
like
basketball.
Anything. Like I've never held. I use it to hold the other half of my shoe when I put. Like I use it to tie my sneaker. I've only used it as an accessory piece to my right hand, right? And he was like, now hold it, and it feels weird already. You're like, no, this guy's not gonna fucking make us like dribble with this hand, is he? And sure as shit, I was like, now dribble with your right hand, and your fingers instantly go like think, like they like spaz out, and you're like beating the ball like a frying pan, like in place, and it feels weird, it feels awkward. You either don't hit it hard enough or you hit it too hard, and it just looks really, you get really close to it, to dribble it. And they're like, all right, now walk, back and forth. And half the balls scatter across the gym just with the walking, right? And he's like, so everybody has to chase their ball down, get back to the line, get done. Then he's like, now jog. And it looks like confetti. Like all the balls are all over the gym. All the kids are running from. Some are laughing, right? But if you took basketball seriously, you're just more. You're humiliated.
You're just getting pissed.
You're pissed. You're frustrated. You're humiliated. Like you think your mom saw the girls town of the same grade are coming in right after the boys. You're like, dude, that girl I have a crush on. She knows she thinks I can't dribble. So she sees you now, and then and because the ball's scattered, now everybody's looking. Right? And they're like, now we're gonna run, and you're contemplating. Maybe he won't notice if I use my right hand, right? Maybe, but you do it, but then you see, Big Jim looking, and he's, kind of, like, fuck, man, he's going to bust my ass. I don't dribble with my left hand. And so you try, and it's just pure chaos, right? Of all these kids with clothes that don't fit chasing these balls all over the gym. And if, and you always imagine like what you'd say, and I think all kids did this. They imagine what they would say in like their post-game press conference, just like Michael Jordan and whatever. So if someone had come up with a mic and just post-game press conference, like these first graders or like first grade me after that would be like, how do you feel right now? I for sure, 100% would not have been like, so passionate.
Yeah.
Like
I just
I'm
love basketball,
beaming
yeah.
with passion and joy right now. I'd be like, I'm mortified. Like I'm
Yeah.
absolutely
Humiliated.
I want to hide
Just-
under a rock, dude. I saw my mom. Like she'll say she wasn't. She laughed at me. Like she was laughing at
Right.
me for the ball run the way. Like the moms are laughing. They think it's so cute, and rightfully so. Right. So mom, I'm not mad at you, but like
Yeah.
rightfully so. And it's funny, right? And it's uncomfortable and you look like a dork but you weren't passionate. Like to say that passion came, that you were always passionate. No, like passion comes from kind of earning your right to be disappointed, right? Putting the work in. And then, you fast forward to high school basketball and, football was kind of my thing. But I think that there was more I played with like almost more passion and energy. Like we had one of the best student sections, in we'll say the whole state.
In
We'll
the
say
Tri-Cities,
we'll
yeah.
say the whole state. But it was the energy that was in that building, the passion, the this, the that. But one of the best compliments I ever remember getting, that people would tell Dad, like they wouldn't tell me. They would either tell me or they would tell Dad. They'd be like, one of the things I love about watching your boys play is until they shoot free throws, I can't tell whether they're right or left-handed. And because I knew, like, and I can always like think back because I remember, Boys Town basketball, like how awkward it was to like learn that, right? I can always think back to that and be like, wow, the reason I loved that compliment so much and the reason that compliment meant so much to me because I knew how hard it was to overcome like getting your right hand to function the same way that your left hand does. And then on the other side of that was where the most passionate moments, the beating of the chest and the crowd cheering and the last second shots and all of that stuff, but none of that, those really high passion moments that happen in sports, they always came on the other side of getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And people are willing to do it in like middle school sports and high school sports for free, like pretty much kind of knowing in their heart too that they're not going to be professional athletes. And then we become adults in the real world and no one's making us. Maybe it's because no one's making us go through those challenges, or I don't know exactly what it is. I think that's it. Isn't no one's making you go through those challenges. No one's making you stick with it. But it's for your career. It's for your life. It's the thing that's going to determine what type of car you drive. It's the thing that this job. It's the thing that's going to determine what type of car you drive, what type of house you live in, what type of life you're going to be able to have for your family. And your people are ducking these challenges and ducking these uncomfortable scenarios, and then being like, it's because I'm passionate. And it pisses me off a little bit. We won't go on that rant, but so I think those were the three things: is one, not hiding behind passion; two, doing the drone test; and three, what's this weird deadline? Like 6 months and I quit.
Yeah.
Like if I don't have everything I want in 6 months, I quit. So I think those three things, I think allowed me and allowed some of the people that are in this business with me to expand and grow and open up more office locations, bring on more clientele, and
going through that struggle now as like in your sales company environment, maybe that's kind of the correlation between when you're in fourth grade and you can't dribble with your left hand, you're there with all your buddies that can't either.
Yeah.
So
I never
being
thought about that, yeah.
in the type of environment that your office has, where everyone has that want to get better, and they're around other people that have succeeded and have stories how they struggled. Like, man, I went out and I didn't make any sales my first 2 weeks.
That's a great correlation that you just, because I never even thought about that, as much, right? That one, people that you liked were also going through the same struggles. Mm-hmm. Two, the sixth grade boys played after you and they could dribble with their left hand. Mm-hmm. And so, I think inside of our company, I think that's a great point, is there's people who have already been there and done it and gone through it. And that's the important of that. But then also there's, people that are starting around the same time of you that are going through the same struggles that you like. Like, you don't care that the kid you hate in elementary school can't dribble with his left hand. Right. You're like, good.
Yeah. but your buddies are. But your buddies, man, my buddy right there, my best friend can do it. Now I want to be like him. I can't. Or it's like, I can't look stupid. He can do it. I got to be able to do it too. I don't want to be left behind. Mm-hmm. Same thing in a competitive, healthy competitive sales environment in the office, stuff like that. So, I like the drone test. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. And we got off script, which I wanted to do, and I knew that we would.
Yeah, I knew it.
I
saw your script and I was like, I'm gonna fuck that.
Yeah, no. And we'll have plenty more where we can dive deep into stuff. But all right, let's go rapid fire a little bit. Not quickly rap, but about yourself and your personal habits, where I know that you, and we've talked about it last night too, that your personal life, there's no such thing as work-life balance. Your personal life, you do things in your personal outside of the office that correlate to success at the office and in your business. It's all intentional. I mean, you're intentionally going to the gym because you know it clears your head or something. What are some of what's your daily routines, or what are your habits that you go through?
You can have there is such thing as work. A lot of people have work-life balance, but I think the people that have one of the, I guess, best, and I am going to get into your question. I didn't mean to dodge your question, but the one thing that got taught to me by one of my mentors in the business, Larry, is that balance comes from putting weight on something on the front end and then getting it off on the back end, right? And we'll use just the same analogy we've been using, like because we dribbled with our left hands, as kids, we got the joy, of being, you either pay now or you pay later, right? And that's kind of, what he taught me going through business. He's like, you can either put the time in now to be able to making the enough money to be able to, and people don't realize you have to be making enough money to take time off. You have to be making enough money to take time, for yourself, or have yourself at a certain status inside of a company in order to be able to take time off and do the things that you want to do without it setting you backwards, right? And so balance, if you're going to balance a scale, you put the weight on something, maybe in your early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, so that when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, you have the time to be able to do so. But the people who want to be able to have, think happy hour and all of these things and all of these trips and all this stuff, when they're 20, that's fine, if that makes you happy, but understand you're probably going to pay for that later when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, right? So it's where, and whatever makes you happy. I'm not here to tell you which it is, but balance can come in two forms. You can have a very average career, a very average income, very average pay, and be able to do all of the happy hour shit, all of the vacations, all of the other stuff, all of the paid time off, or no paid time off, just use every single vacation day that you have, work, get in right at 9, get out right at 4, get out right at 5, and have that type of balance. Or, you can sacrifice some of those happy hours, sacrifice some of, the things that, most, 20 to 30-year-olds, do. And then, when you're 30, when you're 32, when you're 33, have a life that most people be able to do things that most people can't. And what I see a lot now is, either people that I know or, people that I hear about, friends of friends, is so many people are changing careers at 30 and like blaming the company, but they took every single vacation, every single sick day, every single paid time off. They went in at 9, they got out at 4. They weren't any different than any other employee. And so I think there's two types of balance. It's not that there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's that it's just which type of balance do you want? It's a balancing act regardless, right. Right? And so, and what Larry talked about with his balancing act, he's like, I missed some T-ball games. I missed some stuff, with my kids, growing up, I missed a couple of dance recitals, for my daughter. Admittedly, did I hate to miss them? Sure. He was like, but by the time they both reached middle school, he was like, when the coach would ask, are there any parents that want to shag balls? Are there any parents that want to keep the score table, or are there any parents that want to do this? He was like, it was me every single time. He's like, and honestly, a lot of times it was just me and one other parent that were there that could do that, right? So a lot of times, they got to go to the dance recital. He's like, I never missed a practice. He was like, from the time they were middle schoolers on. Yeah. He was like, missed a lot of stuff when they were T-ballers. He was like, which, to be honest, like, do you want to be there for those moments? Sure. He's like, but they didn't remember it anyway. And they didn't remember. He was like, they didn't care. They're 5. They're eating grass, like whatever. He was like, and so he was like, and don't get me wrong. He's like, if I could have done both, I would have. He was like, but then he was like, but I watched like every single one of my sons and daughters' practices from the time they were in 8th grade to the time they were seniors. He was like, that was my balance. So everyone else's balance was juggling the whole life. He's like, I got it out of the way and got a massive return on the back end.
The investment in himself in his 20s rather than doing the whole competition with your friend, like having to go to happy hour with friends, Instagram it, like, I'm doing this, get the bottle service, traveling to Rome and stuff like that. Yeah, so he sacrificed on the front end
to get it on the back. So it's just which type of balance you want. So I do think that, but there is, to get back to I think where you were going, with that question, a lot of the stuff that I do is intentional. There's an old saying that the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything, right? And so I think that, a lot of people think that they think of performance-based industries, and I relate it so much to sports, but just because you're not playing a football game or a basketball game doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing things that make you a high level performer, right? So getting enough sleep is important. Working out on a daily basis is important. Getting your water intake, on a daily basis is important. Putting good foods in your body. And that was something I remember about year 2 or 3 into running a business. I remember I was getting really dad bodish. And there's a picture of me. I hate to say it. People are going to maybe, I don't know. I guess we don't have any viewers yet. So hopefully this one will slide past everybody.
Someone's going to be listening to this in 2026 and be like, I'm going to watch
I'm going to go look for Fat Matt.
Fat boy.
Chubby guy. But, there's a picture of me on Facebook holding my dog, Duke, at the time. And he's like a puppy. And we're up at the cabin. And I'm wearing like a fucking American flag cowboy hat and like my bathing suit, and I've got my shirt off. But I remember looking at the picture after it got posted. I was like, who? I literally, this is not made up story. You're gonna think it's made up, but I was like, who is that holding Duke? It was me, dude. It was my fat self, like holding my dog, and I was like, oh my god, look at my
is that what I look
belly,
like?
right? Like I was like, that what I look like, right? But then so then you kind of work backwards. I'm like, how did I get to like looking, like that? I was like, how do I have the girlfriend I have? And then this picture, like, she likes the fat guy.
Chicks were liking the dad bod during that time.
Yeah,
though.
but I didn't realize that I had one, one, right? And so, I'm looking at the picture and I'm like, shit. And but then I thought about my diet. I was drinking like 3 5-hour energies a day. I was staying up super late. I was sometimes working out, sometimes not. I was, eating my breakfast and lunch consisted of either fast food or gas station food, where I would buy my coffee and buy my Monsters. So I was drinking like Monster 5. It was just putting shit, in my body, and my mood was off, my energy level was off, and I was not performing. My business we weren't failing by any means, but it wasn't doing as well as it was, when I was, had healthier habits. And the funny thing was, I was doing personal development all the time. I was listening to the MFCEO podcast. I was obsessed with, the Andy Frisellas, the Ed Milet's, the Sean Whalens, all those guys that talk on, Instagram about habits. And I was like, man, I really got away, from it. So the habits that I have now, kind of come from running what, in my opinion, was obviously above average business, because most businesses go out of business within their first like 8 or 9 months, right? So it had been in business for, and I was 26, 27, at the time. So I'm in year 2, year 3. But I was moody. I had low energy. I didn't like the way that I looked, in the mirror. And I literally had to like see a picture, of myself, because I didn't remember. I think it was 4th of July, so I probably got drunk. I think the reason why I didn't recognize myself, I didn't remember wearing that hat.
Yeah.
So I was like, who is that fat guy in the cowboy hat, holding my dog, right? And so I was just like, damn, man, I was like, that probably has a lot to do with it. And so then I started drinking more water. I started meal prepping. I started doing, a lot of the right things. And, I found myself becoming a better performer. But, the working out, the diet, the water intake, that's just good for your mind, body, soul. It's not just for if you're going to be playing a 60-minute game. And
or just looking good, too,
or just looking good and feeling confident, in yourself. But the benefits of working out and sleeping and putting good stuff in your body, that stuff is so that you can be an elite performer. When you work in a performance-based industry, you have to be an elite performer, and you can't perform at an elite level if you're dehydrated. You can't perform at an elite level if you're fat. You can't perform at
or you're dragging ass. You ate like shit yesterday. And you're dragging ass.
You can't perform at an elite level if you're not doing things that fill you with energy and fill you with confidence and fill you with goodness. And so if you're just pouring shit into your body and you're not sleeping enough, and so all of those things are intentional, but it's because I got to a place where I really wasn't happy with my mood, my image, my attitude, or the performance of what I thought my standard should be of my business was.
And to be self-aware enough and humble enough to realize that about yourself.
Oh, it was a humbling picture for sure. Like, and so I don't think it was as much. I won't give self-awareness, the credit, but I was like, damn, I literally thought I was like,
if you would have had better self-awareness at the time that you probably have now, you could have caught it. Maybe
I was like, if that were my kid instead of my dog, he'd be like, kid with a fat dad. Like, I was like, and I knew I didn't look like that. The girl I was dating at the time, I was like, I know I didn't look like that when she started dating me, and I was like, was like, I kind of catfished my girl, a
Yeah.
little bit. Like, she came
Bamboozled her.
because I looked really good. Like when we first started dating, I was working out every day, and I was in pretty much my first couple years of running the business. I was still working out, other than doing power cleans. I was just still doing the same workouts that I was doing
From
when I was
college,
playing, college football. So, I looked pretty good, and I was like, damn, man, she's noticed. For sure.
I better shape up or she's
yeah.
gonna leave.
Yeah. And I wasn't the type. And one thing that always bothered me about, relationships and stuff like that is people that are like, well, we've been dating for a long time, so, they love me regardless of what I look like. And I'm like, yeah, but if they love you regardless, you should want to look good for them. If they, the fact that they would love you even if you were overweight is why you shouldn't get to that point. Like they like clearly really care about you. And obviously we hadn't been dating that long through. It was like that serious, but I was like, it was always a pet peeve of mine when people would say that. I was like, man, I'm being kind of a hypocrite. Right now I'm running a business. I'm teaching people about being top performers and, having good habits. I was like, and I've really allowed myself to get some shitty ones, right? It's funny. I actually I was trying to give away a couple of, suits to a couple of guys that work for me now that I don't wear anymore because they're too big. Because I bought them around that time. And there's a pair of pants that I can stick, and so if people can't find the picture, maybe I'll take a picture with them, post them. But it's, I can fit both of my hands, like down to my forearms inside of these pants.
Whoa.
Like I can stand, like around my waist, I can stand there like this, with them in there. But like 2 forearms, like how big that is. But yeah.
A lot bigger than now. Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have been wearing like 34 inch waist.
Something, dude. Like, I don't know.
More.
I don't know. We don't have to pick a size.
Yeah.
It's fine.
We're going to find that picture and we're going to post it on the video. But no, good shit, dude. That was, we're going to wrap it up. We're coming in on an hour. And we're going to do a lot more podcasts together. Because Matt is kind of I just have easy access to him, and he's a guy that's gone through the shit and has a lot of insight. So we're going to be doing a lot more podcasts together on different topics. There's still more journey that we could dive into and stuff, but we'll
be here all day.
Yeah, but we'll dive into some of the stuff that we just talked about on a normal basis. Matt came last night and we've been talking since he got here until the podcast about just random business topics or work ethic or habits, stuff like that. So we'll dive deeper into that kind of stuff. But we're going to wrap it up now. And going forward, you guys can find us, Empire Mentality, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll post some of the little snippets from
TikTok.
The videos.
The new,
dude, everyone needs to be on TikTok. I sent a video to Matt and our buddy Mario yesterday of this baby, like, those like little those like the little airbags that come in like your Amazon Prime packages. The baby's just sitting there and just like on his butt and just smashing his head. He's trying to pop him. I sat on that couch there and was literally just by myself dying laughing for 5 minutes straight, like crying, just watching it on loop.
Yeah, you need to get on TikTok for the entertainment, but it's maybe not the most productive for an entrepreneurial podcast. Dude. You could waste 2 hours of your life on there, but find that video and then get off TikTok, get back to work.
Yeah, that's another thing is I have to put the screen time thing, like the limit on that on all my social media.
I showed that video to like 10 people that work for me.
And I was rolling.
Yeah.
But all right. Anyways, find us on there. We'll post little snippets of the podcast and stuff. The podcasts are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and there's like 10 other ones that I didn't even know existed, but they're on all the podcast platforms. YouTube, if you're listening to this, but you want to watch the video instead, if you want to see this beard that Matt's rocking lately, it looks pretty good. Watch it on YouTube. Other than that, just subscribe, follow. We're just getting started with this stuff, so first one. It feels good to have it done. It does. Was smooth.
I was kind of stressed about it.
Yeah, I was a little stressed about it, too.
I was stressed like the world was going to hear. We don't even have any. We don't have any followers yet. So
I know Joe's going to listen, and Mario, and that's going to be
our friends and family are going to listen.
Yeah, you're going to play it in the office every day so we get the views up.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. Well, we're out. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.